Welcome, everyone. I now call the February 17th, 2026 regular council meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this point, we'll take a moment to take roll call of the council members by position number. Please say here when the city clerk calls your name. City clerk.
Thank you. Councilmember Unguluri.
Here.
Mayor Thompson.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Alderks.
Here.
Councilmember Kurd.
Here.
Councilmember Miles.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Deputy Member, Councilmember Alcabra.
Here.
We'll get that right one day. All present.
Emeritus. Thank you. First up is meeting agenda approval. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? We got more jokes than changes. So we will move on to public engagement opportunities. And they say government is boring.
Find a way to amuse ourselves. Now you're wishing for a joke, aren't you?
No, it's one of those times where, like, I'd like to have something to say, but I can't think of what to say. And in those times, it's better to not say the thing.
Can you explain what enteritis means? They deserve that.
All right, you can join a city board or commission. Applications close soon for City of Bothell boards and commissions. Make a difference in your community and bring your perspective to local issues. No prior experience needed. Applications are due by 4 p.m. on February 20th. Please also complete the 2026 community survey. You can take it to weigh in on our 2027-2028 budget priorities and provide feedback on our current city services. If you got a postcard, you can use the link and access code on the card. If you didn't get a postcard, visit the city website for the survey link. Downtown Discovery Walks. Join city staff to explore downtown Bothell and share your ideas about what's working well, what could be improved, and what makes the area special to you. The tour starts at Bothell City Hall, Saturday, February 21st, 1 to 2 p.m., or Thursday, March 19th from 6 to 7 p.m. And props to staff for having it happen at 2 different times, one on an evening, one on a weekend. Like, appreciate that. Next up is public comment. The city has accepted public comment in writing as well as accepted signups for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Written comments submitted to the city clerk no later than 3 p.m. today were forwarded to all city council members and are part of the record. When the clerk calls your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please note that council will receive your input, but we do not engage in discussion of these topics. Staff will make note of items requiring follow-up. City clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. We had one written comment received from Peter Condiles regarding, on behalf of the Everest LLC, regarding their private docket request. And I do have one person signed up to speak tonight, John Gray. If you would step to the podium and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak, even though I just said your name.
My name is John Gray.
Oh.
My name is John Gray. I live at 20120 103rd Place Northeast, Bothell 98011, about 5 houses south of the county line. We have a problem getting access to 100th Avenue Northeast that is also 19th Avenue Southeast across the county line. We live in a little subdivision that is an M. So we have 3 points where we can get out of the neighborhood, all 3 going to 100th Avenue Northeast. My wife spent 7 minutes on a recent day when there was not construction on 100, waiting to turn left. She finally gave up, turned right, and tried to get back south, which meant going on to 236th and going over to 23rd, which becomes 104th. That dumped her into the Canyon Park Junior High Middle School traffic jam. She needed to leave at 8:30 to go to Evergreen for a procedure that my daughter has every 5 weeks. I know many people who just avoid using 104th, and also 100th during that time because the roads are so busy. We need some way to improve access. Also, there is a crossing that is mandatory in the gully about 238th or so. There's limited visibility, and there is no crosswalk or any other signal to protect those who are crossing. 100th is the only direct access route from here up to 228th. Bothell Way meanders and goes further west. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Is there anyone else in the audience who speak? I'm sorry. Please step to the podium, state your name for the record.
Peter Candelius for the record. I submitted the rezone application on behalf of the property owner of 22811 7th Avenue Southeast. I just wanted to let you know that myself and the property owner are here today. If you guys have any questions when you get to item 8A, my colleague submitted a letter kind of explaining our position on the item on the agenda today. I'd also encourage you guys to go back and listen to the Planning Commission meeting from December. I thought it was a really good discussion. There was consensus that something needs to be done with the property. Now it comes down to studying it, figuring out what that is. So we'd encourage it to be added to the official docket cycle for this year. So like I said, any questions, we're gladly here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak, or in the virtual audience who wishes to speak? If you're in the virtual audience, please use the raise hand function. Not seeing anybody. Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. In that case, next up is reports, and we start off with the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and City Council members. I have a brief update on Triangle Junction and the Pop Shop program, and then that'll be followed by Ray Sosa will be providing an update on the Housing Action Plan. So just a bit of a reminder for anybody about the Pop Shop program. The overall purpose of that program, if you didn't know, if you've just seen the shops in the past, is really to support early stage development of businesses for small businesses, primarily disadvantaged business owners. The purpose is to provide temporary affordable incubator space so that anyone with a home-based business who's thinking about getting into brick and mortar, it gives a low cost of entry to be able to give their business a chance. And these pop shops are located at what we're now officially calling Triangle Junction, which is right at the corner of highways 522 and 527. The program started in 2021 and started with 4 structures, and now we're up to 8, as you'll probably be aware. And that started last year in 2025. Overall, the program supports our economic vitality vision for being able to help economic spirit flourish when local businesses flourish too. We've also heard from our businesses that 51% of businesses started after 2020 reported that they had a limitation of access to small, affordable commercial spaces. So that's something to always keep in mind too. Now, with this program, if you're not familiar, it's a 2-year program. So this isn't in perpetuity. The program's centered around in year 1, helping the owners get a chance to strengthen their operations, build stability, and really feel like what is it to have an in-person business. And then in year 2, it shifts to planning next steps of determining readiness to move on to having a full storefront outside of the Pop Shop program. Some of the things that we're looking at in terms of proving success is around number of business licenses that go from being in the Pop Shop program to moving on, revenue growth for each Pop Shops, and then also just the engagement of learning opportunities. So we do have a number of businesses that are entering into that graduation period of they've made it through the 2-year cycle. We'll be opening 3 slots for the next cohort, which will run between April 2026 and April 2028. Those applications for the next batch of shops will be opening next week, so February 23rd through March 23rd. And again, with the hope then of having people contracted and ready to start their work in April. The other update I wanted to provide you, because if we're going to talk about the Pop Shops, is you may be wondering what's happening with the mobile food incubator program. We've had a few updates on that over the past year. And again, one of the things we were looking to secure was the ability from the King County Health Department to operate. Fortunately, we have found a solution for that. And we're working through 3 viable applications for having the first cohort of that program starting. What's nice about the food incubator program is because there's not a structure, it's a pad, we'll be able to have a different variety in scheduling and can add different vendors as interest comes up. We're looking to fill a total of 7 spots. So far we have 3 solid businesses to start with. So that advertisement, it will also be going out here pretty soon as we get ready to see the first food vendors opening. The other thing is, just as a reminder for anyone in the community with interest, the Triangle Junction space has an event space that's programmable and is of use for outdoor spaces. So as the weather gets better, that might be something that picks up. And the city supports any needed permits, procedures, infrastructure, and really helps people with community organization. We'll also provide a temporary ADA path to help make sure that the event is accessible. So again, as the weather gets better, if people have interest, they'll find more information out on the Triangle Junction website. So if you look at our bothell.gov and search Triangle Junction, there's information for all 3 of these things. But bottom line, wanted to make sure council knew that the next cohort of 3 vendors will be opening up next week. So if you've been hearing from anybody who wants to give their hand a try at a business, this is a great opportunity. So with that, I am going to turn things over now at this point to Ray Sosa, who is here to present tonight on the Housing Action Plan. Ray.
Thank you, Kyle. I'm going to go ahead and get screen sharing going here. And also, just to let you all know, I'll be reading my speaker notes from my phone. I'm choosing to embody the spirit of our recently adopted climate action plan and not printing paper. So with that said, good afternoon, City Council. It's great to see you all. After our winter recess, I see some new faces in the dais. So for those who I haven't met yet, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ray Sosa. I'm a senior planner for the Long Range Team in Community Development. I joined the city in September of 2024, so I have been with the city for over a year now. I serve as a project manager for the Housing Action Plan, which I am here tonight to give a brief update on. No action is required. Tonight I'm just giving a status update, including next steps. The Housing Action Plan is an update to the 2018 housing strategy. Work began in September of 2024 with staff looking at the prior plan, current housing efforts, and taking guidance from the comp plan update, which wrapped up at the end of that year. Staff presented a draft housing goals and objectives in January of 2025, which serves as the Housing Action Plan for the HAPS guiding document. We heard from both Council and the Planning Commission the importance of conducting community engagement throughout the creation of the Housing Action Plan. The department then began the process of finding and hiring an engagement consultant. Burke was ultimately selected in midsummer, and after onboarding, began full community engagement in early fall. The first phase of engagement wrapped up in end of last year, and the feedback collected from the community is now being used to create the first full draft of the Housing Action Plan, which is expected in mid to late May. According to our timelines, we are hoping to have that update done with the Housing Action Plan in mid. So after summer, we're hoping to have the Housing Action Plan, a second draft in the final draft, in Q3 of this year. The Housing Action Plan has 3 components to it. the plan update itself, which is what I just described, and the update to the middle housing and affordable housing codes. The middle housing code work wrapped up in December of last year, and the affordable housing code was updated for the first time in December of last year as well. Staff is working on the second, more comprehensive update now, and will bring that to the council for discussion when we are ready. All these efforts are to align Bothell with recent state housing mandates and ensure Bothell has much-needed affordable housing for all individuals. Staff collected feedback from the community at public events, our online engagement, platform Engage Bothell, and through targeted focus groups in which residents voluntarily signed up to speak with staff. For further detail, including takeaways from these efforts, you can look at the attachments in the agenda packet. Next steps, as I mentioned, staff is now working on applying the feedback received to the updated housing action plan, which we expect to publish by June, and just in time for a second round of engagement in the summer. Staff will also present the draft to the council and planning commission during this time as well. As I mentioned, staff is also looking at introducing new land use incentives as well as revising the multifamily tax exemption known as the MFTE program as part of a second update to the Affordable Housing Code. More details and discussion with the council will be held when staff has a work plan ready for discussion. So in conclusion, no actions required tonight. Thank you for your time tonight.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thanks. I don't have any questions. I just want to say happy 1-year anniversary at the city.
That concludes the staff report portion. If there's any questions for me, I'm happy to respond.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. I don't believe there are any questions. Oh, Councilmember Dodd.
I did have a question for you, City Manager. When it comes to events at Triangle Junction, what is included with that? Like, can an event haver, for lack of a better word off the top of my head, event organizer, there we go, can they like reserve the restaurant incubator space? I'm just curious about that. You can tell me to look at the website. I don't have a computer in front of me.
Yeah, I don't know if we're that far evolved yet, but I believe that would that seems logical, but let me follow up with you. I'll get more information on that one.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. I think probably the one complexity is that if the food provider isn't part of our program, then they would have to have the business license, food handler permit, and that sort of a thing. There's a certain element of the program that we're supporting that helps make sure that all those things are in place. So, but we can follow up on how that's coordinated.
Councilmember Alcabro.
Thank you, Mayor. I question about the incubator program itself. You mentioned we're getting a new cohort. Would it be possible to get an update on, because the program has been running for 5 years, plus or minus now. Can we get an update on how it's been going, feedback from the folks who've been working with us, we're collaborating with, and all that?
Yeah, we'll reach out and try and get something scheduled.
And numbers like revenue and expansion, all those things because they develop a business plan, my understanding, as part of this. How well did they execute on that plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the parts of graduation could be public presentations about your business plan.
Oh,
So,
yes,
yeah.
they'd love that.
That's right. That's right. I'll tell them it was your idea.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I will move on to council committee reports, community reports, and conversation. Council members. Oh, Councilmember Anguillari.
Today at 4 p.m. We were invited to a legislative event from ASUWB, Associated Students of the University of Washington, Bothell. It was a great event meeting. Most of our council members joined. Some of the takeaways from this meeting, University of Washington Bothell students are looking for internships from our city, if at all possible. Whatever the internships that we have, we should, I think, let them know so that we have an opportunity to engage our students. And the second one, we also agreed like a quarterly meetups with the university, however we can, and Gabby was there as well, which was great. And we were thinking, by default, they do want to work with us in many ways. So we were thinking, how about ASUWB president is by default part of a DEI committee, so that they're always getting updates, what's happening. We also encouraged any other committees that they can be part of. And also they shared some of the concerns ICE related, and of course we shared however we support on what is going on and the transportation. So I just wanted to let you guys know that it was a great meet. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I was also able to attend the meeting there, and it was just a really impressive group of young people who are interested in understanding how the city works better and how to work alongside of us. There were questions around internships, and Gabby, our DEI coordinator who was there, was just a tremendous help. And I think that we'll be finding ways to partner together more closely in the coming years. We're also talking about, as kids, like as these young people who are graduating and going off into their, the rest of their lives, how they pass the torch to their successors, because they move through pretty quickly. And so just to make sure that those conversations stay strong. And yeah, I would also like to share just an update from the Human Services Committee. We met on Friday to review the Human Services Grants program, and we were looking at criteria for, the types of organizations we're looking for, categories of human service organizations that serve our community, making sure that we are, that the city's outreaching to the appropriate organizations, and bringing them into, informing them of opportunities for grants and covering it so that we can have nice coverage over needs in our community. So that's the update from that.
All right, I'll move on to projected agenda discussion. And if nobody has anything, I'd love to accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilmember Dodd.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Dodd and a second from Deputy Mayor Alders to approve the consent agenda. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none. City Clerk.
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Onguluri,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes.
Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Alders,
Yes.
Councilmember Kurd,
Yes.
Councilmember Miles,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
City Clerk, it's so nice of you to not leave me alone to be the only person to make that mistake. So I feel solidarity with you, and I appreciate it. All right, first up is Agenda Bill 26023, SCA membership. I can kick it over to the City Clerk, but I too have a no update, but I'll go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Very briefly, just in your packet tonight is a resolution that's been brought back from last month. Council has been considering ongoing membership in the Sound Cities Association. And so as directed, we brought back a resolution for consideration to tonight. If you're ready to consider termination of membership, the resolution would be the path to do that with a motion, second, and a vote. If you are would like to remain with SCA, then we will never bring this back up. If you'd like more time, then we'll take that direction as well. So there's really those three options plus anything else you'd like to have. And I know there has been an interest in getting more information from SCA about potential continuation, and Mayor, you may have more to share on that, but otherwise we'd be looking for a direction on which path to take.
I will just say, and anybody else is obviously welcome to jump in, we've been in conversation with SCA, but we have not reached a resolution, I think, where we're comfortable continuing, but I also have not given them notice and talked to them about this happening, so I would prefer to kick this out another month. Councilmember Gerd?
When are our dues due?
To my knowledge, we have not been invoiced, which kind of aligns with, I think SCA knows that you're considering things. So the two likely recipients of an invoice would be Mayor Thompson or myself, and neither one of us has received an invoice.
Are those invoices usually due within 30 days of? Yes.
That's a great question in that if there's a bill that passes in Olympia, they will be, but they do try and get timely acceptance, and we'll start reminding, I think they start reminding agencies at the end of February if they haven't received dues, so that would be our secondary knowledge.
Thanks. I'd like to push this out no further than the end of March if we push it out.
Councilmember Dodd?
Thank you. I agree with that. I also, rather than trying to guess a specific date, could we rely on the mayor and the deputy mayor to let us know when they have an update and then see it back on the agenda? I just don't want you guys to have to prepare for stuff and then it's like, we're going to delay again. That just doesn't feel efficient. Do we need a motion to, oh, we need Rami to talk, I guess.
Yeah, Councilmember? Oh,
I'm just uncomfortable about kicking the can down the road. I agree with having a March timeline.
Councilmember Alcabra?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to point that way and I just was pointing you your direction so you can look at that side. I'm not mayor officially. The question I have is the invoice. I know they haven't invoiced us, but maybe just confirm that we're not going to get invoiced, or maybe if we do, the timeline when they expect us to respond, because it's a two-way thing also. That's it. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that is one of the things that we take seriously is when we have a bill, we'll treat it. So that will, yeah, certainly impact the timeline. If something changes, we'll let you know. Otherwise, it sounds like there's momentum to come back by the end of March.
If something changes, we'll let you know. But yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think we want to kick it out anymore. And if we haven't reached if we haven't figured out that we want to stay by the middle of March, I think that I'm very comfortable not staying in that case. Councilmember Dodd?
Thanks. Will one of the two of you, or both, whatever, own reaching out to Mr. Feldstein just to let him know, like, that's our timeline and?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we going to have the SCA folks come and talk to us? I thought that was going to happen at some point.
There was a meeting with the mayor and the deputy mayor with the CEO of Sound Cities Association, but no formal presentation of the full council has been scheduled. We can certainly entertain that if there's interest.
And if there's any resources or conversations you'd like to have, feel free to let me know and I'll make sure you get access to those. All right. In that case, we are going to move on to Agenda Bill 26024. I'm going to just say the Arch Sales Tax Revenue and ILA instead of read the entire resolution.
Yeah, and there's two resolutions before you tonight, and I think at advice of our city clerk, we can take those two items separately so that you don't have to read the longest motion, but it's up to you. I'm going to describe the first resolution though, and then I'll pause and see if there's any questions, and if you'd like to take a vote. So the first one before you has to do with Bothell's contribution amount. As you'll recall, back on January 20th, we had a discussion about allocating funds for the Housing Trust Fund when staff requested to approve $119,000 for the city's portion to build 7 new housing projects. The expense would be paid from the city's housing trust fund that is held by Arch. Tonight's request replenishes the city's housing trust fund account. So this was something that was identified after that meeting, is that our resolution was missing a step of making sure that then funds that are collected from the general fund portion of the city, from the sales tax, then gets allocated to the city's housing trust fund account through the state's shared sales tax revenue program in 2025. So this is purely administrative in nature. It basically just commits of, we already identified that there was funds needed. Now we have to put the funds in the right account. So it'd be the equivalent of transferring from your savings to your checking if you had that type of bill. So with that, I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions, or if you'd like to get this one cleared off, the mayor can accept the motion.
Councilor Curd.
I move to adopt the resolution authorizing all monies collected through the State of Washington Shared Sales Tax for Affordable Revenue Program in 2025 to the city's account in Arch's Housing Trust Fund, approximately $104,430.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Curd and a second from Councilmember Dodd. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? City Clerk? Oh,
Thank
you're good.
thank you.
Everybody's a jokester.
Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Ungulari,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alders,
Yes.
Councilmember Curd,
Yes.
Councilmember Miles,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
So the second resolution is also administrative cleanup work, and this is one where, as Arch staff was working with the city of Bellevue, which is the administrative agency of Arch, identified that there was a gap in the interlocal agreement that each city is part of. In that agreement, it was formalized in 2010 that Bellevue would become the host city. There was a handful of rental properties that became part of the Arch portfolio before then, and you'll see the list of Bothell properties that are Bothell specific awarded projects as an attachment to your resolution. Essentially, then this creates a gap of where anything past 2010, Bellevue has all the legal rights and wherewithal to administer those projects on behalf of the cities. Anything before that, though, if there are any changes or compliance needs, there's a process where each step is being done. Basically, there's twice the work. So to clean this up, as you may know, interlocal agreements have to come before each agency. This was reviewed, recognizing that not every city had one of these properties. By adopting a resolution, we're essentially granting authority to Bellevue to administer these properties for us. So again, shouldn't change anything other than making work a little bit easier. And again, happy to answer any questions, or we can take a motion.
Councilmember Curd.
With gratitude to the City of Bellevue for continuing to administer the program, I move to adopt the resolution authorizing the City of Bellevue to administer certain housing project agreements on behalf of the City of Bothell, consistent with the amended and restated interlocal agreement.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Curd and a second from Councilmember Dodd. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? I hope not. City Clerk?
Thank you. Please say yes or no when I call your name. Councilmember Ungulari,
Yes.
Mayor Thompson,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Alders,
Yes.
Councilmember Curd,
Yes.
Councilmember Miles,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcabra.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right. Next up, actually, it's only been a half an hour. Next up, we have a study session, 2026 Comprehensive Plan Private Docket Request. Would you guys like to take a few minutes before we head down there?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. It's 6:33. Will 7 minutes suffice?
Yeah.
What?
I gotta call my son.
Yes. We will be back at 6:45. All right. Next up is Agenda Bill 26025, Comp Plan Docket Request. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, we do, through the annual review process, there was one request this year, and we're going to hear a little bit more about that and get some further direction from council tonight on whether or not to include it on the work plan. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our Deputy Director of Community Development, Christian Getz.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. It's good to be here again. Tonight, I'm going to walk through the one, as City Manager mentioned, the one private comprehensive plan amendment request that we received. There's no action tonight, really just looking for initial, your input and feedback on the proposed amendment request. I'm going to get into the details here in a little bit, and this will help us craft what a resolution would look like coming back to you with the direction for staff to move forward. So a little bit of background. Every jurisdiction within Washington State has got to provide for a mechanism to receive and process private amendment requests to the comprehensive plan. These are the comp plan designations or the future land use map designations, the FLUME. that I'll get into some imagery here in a minute. Our deadline for those submittals is October 31st. We've seen one each year over the last 2 years, and this is the one that we received this year on October 10th, so made it in with plenty of time. The request is to change the designation from an office zone to an office designation to a residential designation. I'll try not to use the zoning code stuff. That'll come separately. This is up just outside of Canyon Park, and they're looking to go from the employment medium to the residential medium, as was described in the applicant materials. So the comp plan, the map on the left you see is what we developed through the work over those 2 years, where we figured out the preferred alternative, where we found the balance of capacity and density for both residential and employment. Those were all based on the countywide planning policies for both of those fixtures, and we align that with the various designations. Also looking at ways to incorporate floor area ratio adjustments through some of the mixed-use overlays. This site has a E-MC employment medium commercial overlay. Those overlays helped bump up some of the capacity opportunities within those areas. What's really important, and the next slide will show this, we maintain the employment medium on this site from what was originally there and what was being proposed at the time. So a little bit more of the history for this site. The map on the left was the zoning and comprehensive plan map that was combined, that we peeled apart during the process in 2024. The OP, the office professional, was the zoning, was the designation before. We carried that forward with the application that was in process to the current designation, employment medium. So it meant the same thing, we just changed what those designations were. When I say that we maintained that, there was an application that had gone through various layers of permitting, both environmental and construction permits, to construct the office building that you see on the right of the screen. No indication that we should change that during the comprehensive plan update. That's why it was given the employment medium designation, maintaining that office professional approach. The subsequent zoning that was assigned with the comp plan work was office professional with that employment medium commercial overlay, the EMC overlay. I mentioned that there were some critical areas. There was a pipe stream that was redirected, and some of that work has been completed. That did take a bit of time, and since the comp plan was wrapped up, the permits had lapsed and expired. So things to think about. For us, it's not as simple as just flipping a switch to go from office to residential. We found that balance within the preferred alternative, where we established the various densities throughout the city for residential zoning within every sub-area. We also found the balance with the employment. So the employment that was proposed was factored into what our employment goals could achieve on this site. So shifting that designation would mean that we'd need to reevaluate where those jobs would go. How could we find the balance for where that would live? So what we would have to do is kind of peel those layers of the onion back, revise not only the sub area plan for that Shelton View Meridian 3rd Southeast, but citywide, just to kind of pick out how we could redesignate the employment targets throughout the city. Where would they go? As we mentioned a few weeks ago, the residential development that we are starting to see within the densities, the designations that were established, those are coming in. We are not seeing as much employment. So we definitely think that that may be one of the factors that'll be the rub that we'll start to see in the future. As both comprehensive plan amendment requests, the one from last year and this year, we're seeking to revise and shift from employment to residential. We took this to Planning Commission, had a discussion with them. Their recommendation, they recognize that there is a need to evaluate this. They did not deny that. They said this doesn't make much sense as a strict office professionals designation. Should consider it as a mixed use, and their recommendation was to wrap it into the Canyon Park sub-area plan work that is slated to begin this year. That's what our recommendation is to do as well, where we take a look at Canyon Park, not just within the boundaries, but everything outside of that. We're already going to be evaluating the amendment request from 2025 at your direction to include that with the Canyon Park sub-area. That would potentially shift that site from commercial to residential. So it'll give us a bigger area to consider what to do and find a way to balance that employment and housing assessment. So I'll go back to this one. So this is my last slide. That's really where we're at. Staff do think that by doing it on its own, it would pull away from the work plan items that we have slated to complete the beginning of this year. But wrapping it into the Canyon Park work, it made sense to look at that as it's the zone right next to it. It's 1 or 2 parcels away from the boundary. And Planning Commission focused heavily on the need to really redesignate this something along the lines of likely a mixed use, not necessarily to go strictly to residential, but at least to consider what would it look like to be a mixed use zone or a mixed use designation, so we could accommodate both residential and commercial. And with that, I will take questions. I know we did get a comment today regarding the materials in the packet. Staff haven't replied back to that at this point. There's a lot there, a lot to unpack, but just want to make sure you were aware of that.
Thank you for the presentation. I like the idea of wrapping it into updating the sub-area plan. I also live up the hill from this parcel, so I've seen the sign that's been out for a while, and I always am like, really? An office building? Like, it's just kind of really the edge of where we see a lot of commercial activity, and that's a very fussy thing to say because it's right down the hill, but I've been wondering about, like, depending on the businesses that go there, what kind of access are they going to have? There's the light at 9th where you can turn into the daycare that's next door, but it's kind of a free-for-all, and 9th, the turn to go north on 9th backs up the turn lane way far past where it actually starts, like during rush hour. Like, I've just been kind of, on my random drives home thinking about, like, what an odd, okay. So I think reevaluation makes a lot of sense. I don't want it to skew the rest of your work plan, but I think looping into the sub-area plan is it sounds like a happy medium, if that sounds supportable. So I think I agree with the Planning Commission there.
Okay. No, I agree with Councilmember Dodd and the staff recommendation, the Planning Commission recommendation. Y'all's time is precious, and we want you to do lots of things, and I don't really want to put any of the other things that are on your work plan that we just talked about last week before. I don't really want to delay any of those things. I also agree that, like, looking at this parcel probably makes sense. Like, if you look at the map, it's this little island of this one color. The one thing that I would say is we have that conversation is I really like what you said about having it be a mixed use area. Just don't zone it for somebody where we can just, like, build townhomes and we get relatively low density and absolutely no other services or retail. So, like, if they could build a project that is ground floor retail and goes up as much as they can, like, that would be, to me, that would be much more appealing there than just a residential island.
I tend to agree. I wonder about the boundaries to Canyon Park. And we are, Canyon Park is our growth center from PSRC, and we have a duty to maintain activity units there, whether those be living spots or working spots. So I'm wondering if those boundaries are flexible, and if so, would it make sense to if we're wrapping this into, why are we wrapping this into Canyon Park? Is it because it's close? Because it's actually not in our boundary for it to be Canyon Park? Is it because we want to remove the capacity for office employment from this? It seems to be outside of the core of Canyon Park, and it might not really make a whole lot of intuitive sense for it to be, or as we've heard in some of the testimony provided, might not make economic sense for it to be office or professional space. Are we looking to offset that elsewhere in Canyon Park? Is that why we're trying to have the conversation and looping it into Canyon Park? Or is it because like the heart of this site is linked to Canyon Park and it is part of the sub area? Because if it is, then we need to really think about why we drew the boundaries around the neighborhoods that we did during the comp plan. So I agree that we should consider the site. I agree with the Planning Commission about wondering about how are we going to come up with the employment units elsewhere. That is a concern of mine, but if the economy is not going to allow developers to build dense commercial space that we're requiring in our code, we're not going to get it by asking for it to be, we're not going to get it by forcing the zoning, right? So what are we really doing and what are we trying to get at? I kind of think that this is separate from Canyon Park, unless we're looking to move our numbers around and make sure that the math's at the end of the day for employment. So I could be persuaded into leaning towards wrapping it into Canyon Park because that timeline is happening concurrently, but I don't think that it's unable to stand on its own as a consideration, because you look at the flume, it's a random color. Like you don't have to be colorblind to know that sticks out like a sore thumb. Why did we do that way? We just have, it was that way a long time ago, and so we've decided that it should be that way now. That's not a good enough way to justify it, and if the economy is not working towards these types of parcels being developable in office and commercial space, I think we really need to have a more full understanding of what the site's potential is. There's been a long history at this site of different permits, and so I would defer to the property owners to know what they've been looking for. They've obviously been trying to maximize the site before. Our new code has some new alternatives that might open up some doors. They need to look at it comprehensively and holistically. And I don't see looping in an area outside the sub area into the Canyon Park conversation that we're going to be having as being a really easy way to have that conversation. So I agree that we should assess it. I don't recall off the top of my head what the other 2024 docket request was. I think it was in the Midtown sub area on Bothell Everett Highway, right? Can you inform us a little bit more about what that one?
The 2024?
You said that this was one of two.
Oh,
docket requests.
the prior request that we went through last year. Was in the dark, the medium purple.
Oh,
it was within the business park. Yes, so it was within Canyon Park.
Okay. So yeah, that makes sense to me, that made sense to defer to the Canyon Park sub-area plan update because it was in Canyon Park. And transferring numbers between a parcel in Canyon Park to the rest of Canyon Park makes sense. But it's a bit more of a stretch for me to do it from a different sub-area.
Is it that if we change something from commercial to residential, then we have to redo our growth targets like comp plan wide, and we're already doing that when the Canyon Park sub-area plan is open?
Yeah, you'd have to find a way to find the balance, so the maths correctly and balances out at the end. And having Canyon Park, just seeing the proximity to Canyon Park, we have evaluated with the Canyon Park sub-area plan from 2020, areas north of Mulvey Road that are in the county. They were part of the other areas assessed section, so that we did look at, or some of you that were at the table, you did look at it at that time to consider what are the impacts. Sometimes it was just transportation, roadway networks, the proximity, or I think I've said the sphere of influence that Canyon Park has is bigger than its boundaries. So to us, it made a little bit of sense to just process it at the same time and consider it holistically in that area.
I have to say this. I apologize in advance. So this is zoned employment, medium commercial. If we square the medium commercial, does it then equal the employment?
Now that we have gotten the dad jokes out of the way, there are still dad jokes. I hear, like, I hear what you're saying around, like, yeah, I agree with my colleagues that it absolutely should be assessed. It's just a matter of, like, where and when. And my thought is, if staff is comfortable with looping this into Canyon Park, it makes sense to me based on the way I experience that area. It feels more connected to Canyon Park and the shopping area. You have a shopping area and you have a childcare, and then you have what maybe someday would have been an office building, but now could be mixed use residential. That flows to me, and whether it's outside of a radius circle drawn on a map, it makes more sense to me in terms of how that area is used and experienced to be included part in Canyon Park. And so if that's, and I don't know if that's the similar logic that what staff is using, but I'm not opposed to you looping it into Canyon Park.
Yes, and it is, there are clear boundaries. This is more of a transition zone between what Canyon Park is and the lower density residential neighborhoods that are around there. So, 228th is a definite boundary. There are no zones that are similar to or a step away from the intensity of Canyon Park, but this is one of those areas that is just a small node off the side to the west that, like you say, it's a transitional area that we will likely find these throughout our regular work, where we see the question of, well, what was the zoning before? What was the designation before? We carried a lot of them forward because we just had so much to update. But as we look a little bit closer through development, applications or through a finer lens, we see that there is need for some updates, and this is one of them that we think could work well with the broader Canyon Park area.
And I tend to agree with that.
In general, I think we should look at it as part of a larger project. The question I have, I'm neutral on whether it goes to Canyon Park or Independent. The only question I have is, if we do this, and you mentioned the Meridian, Shelton View, Third Ave sub area, I don't know when we're going to get to that, but when we do, is this going to affect that work also? And then we're gonna have to look at things again from that aspect, so that scope.
Yeah, I think what we would do is the annual comprehensive plan update that we would pursue. It'll have a number of other items in that in there. So not just what'll come out of the Canyon Park work, but it will incorporate the Shelton View sub area as far as an update. So
With this one as well, is it?
right.
Oh, when we do the Canyon Park. we
because
do
it
then. I
because
see.
it splits the boundary for that sub area. So we'd have to do we'll do that designation work, and then following that is where the zoning work would take place. We weren't anticipating looking at the neighborhood boundaries or the sub area boundaries and changing those. Those have been set for a number of years. I'm not sure where those, how far back those date, but that was not the intent to change the sub area boundaries.
Because this was related, the other question I had is like, what is my larger concern is the domino effect on the rest of the city that this will have. So this is why I think we should look at it carefully. I trust your recommendation. I don't think we should do it independently right now because I worry that if we change things now, it will have us change some other things so that we can adapt to this thing this time. The final thing I'm going to say is I agree with the mayor, some sort of mixed use, which is neither 100% office, neither 100% housing, but it will help us mitigate some of the employment, because I know that's a concern of yours. So that might mitigate some of the employment issues we might encounter if we make it 100% residential. But we'll have the conversation as we go, I guess.
What's the status of the bills in Olympia right now about,
With the not being,
yeah,
Have we had an update on that? The one that I testified on with not being able to require ground floor commercial.
Yeah. That we,
If they didn't reuse bill numbers every year, this would be easier.
Yeah, I believe it's still moving forward. There's potential amendments, but it's one we're still monitoring. It's still alive though.
That's definitely going to be part of, we may not be able to require ground floor commercial. The city did testify, saying in established sub-area plans that we should be able to, because that's a huge part of what we've leaned on. And Bothell, not to sound like stereotypical, like Bothell's a little different, but like we have a dearth of commercial space in the city, and in trying to become a climate forward community, having services in our neighborhoods is a big part of that. I don't know why I'm staring at you, Councilmember Alcabra, just so you know.
I'm the coolest guy.
Yeah, and as we're monitoring that bill, so just for those who are following, there's a bill being considered in Olympia that has to do with whether or not cities are able to mandate commercial and ground floor, but there's also some exceptions around transit areas and certain percentages of the city. But there's been different variables thrown out there for consideration. You mentioned sub areas, and Councilmember Dodd, one of the things that's been brought up in Olympia is that's a very King County associated term, or PSRC associated term. So they're looking for different. They're looking for different ways to balance that out. And again, it is one where I think that bill, if there was a record, at least for this year, of the number of times that we've had a version to review, this is definitely the leader in the pack. So it's kind of a day-by-day update.
I did just want to provide a little context for folks. I'm not a big fan of changing sub-area boundaries in general. Also, it's one parcel away from the sub area. There's just a daycare between the boundary line and this parcel. So it's very close. It's not a nice geometric shape if we extend it more, but it's already not really a shape. So
We're not starting from like a perfect square.
Yeah.
Like
which as we look across the city with our topography, it can be hard, I think, on a flat map to really create sub area boundaries that make sense, especially as places evolve. if it was at the top of the hill, I would be like, oh my God, that's not part of Canyon Park. But like, this doesn't bother me as a lifetime Canyon Parker.
My point wasn't to put it here or there. My point is, what are the, let's have an analysis on if we do this, what might the effects be, if any, on other things that we might be doing in the future. That's it. It's not move this to Sheldon View or move this. It doesn't matter to me.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're not done, I did not mean to interrupt. I'm a very good interrupter, though, I must admit. Question for you. If we do, because I look at this parcel that is a really short walk from a grocery store, from a BRT station here in a little bit, and like, to me, that's a place where I would like a lot of people to live. Like, if we pull it into the sub area, is it easier to bring it into that, like, 5-over-1, like with a couple extra stories bonus if you do affordable housing type product? Or can we do that regardless?
You could do it regardless. It would be starting with this designation, the comprehensive plan designation update, and shifting it to something, I'll say, in the purples. And then the zoning comes after that, into the details, so.
Okay.
The other question that I have after reading the packet is one of the options that we had to give feedback on was assigning the suggested amendment to the Planning Commission for recommendations. What's on the Planning Commission's docket? We haven't talked to them for a year, so I don't know. Are they busy? Could they take on something like this in parallel or in sequence with Canyon Park stuff? Or is Canyon Park stuff mostly coming to us?
It'll all go through, everything that was on the work plan that you saw 2 weeks ago will go through. Everything was either a comp plan amendment or a BMC code update project. So everything will go through Planning Commission and City Council. So they're going to see everything that you'd see. So they're busy, as you are too.
You good? You're good? Okay. I wanted to emphasize what the mayor said. This lot is incredibly walkable. 2 grocery stores, a pharmacy, a daycare, dentists, physical therapy, pho, like everything you need. All the kinds of food, to be clear. So I think if we can get dense development there, close to our planned BRT, all that stuff, like you can actually, with good physical ability, even like moderate, walk over to the park and ride to catch a bus. Like this is a really good spot for like a lot of housing that follows the model that we've been hoping for, with just really walkable neighborhoods. So I just wanted to emphasize like that's a shockingly good spot for it in a lot that doesn't have something that we'll hear about getting torn down.
Do you have clear direction?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Did you want to? Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we are going to move on to our last agenda bill of the evening, Agenda Bill 26026, Council Protocol Manual Updates. I was going to call him the city manager, but he just left. Switching ends of the table.
I'm the accompaniment tonight.
Over here, Kyle is now over there,
That's
Kyle.
right. That's right. So just a brief introduction as Laura gets the slides up. As council may recall, your last update to the protocol manual was a little over 2 years ago. We did it in November ahead of the year. And since that time, staff have been keeping a log of different themes or ideas for potential updates that have come up, but with the advice too of we don't want to open the protocol manual for edits every few months. The protocol manual itself serves as guidance for council on how you want to operate as a group, and so it's fully within your control, and things don't necessarily shift and change super frequently. So this is the scheduled periodic update. With that, I'm going to turn things over to our city clerk, Laura Hathaway, who she's blessed to own this manual. And so she's here tonight to talk to you about different potential updates that we've heard, some with suggestions and some really to open it up for conversation. So I think for tonight, this is a good opportunity for the 7 of you to have a conversation, and we will feverishly take notes. And the intent would be is to bring something back. So with that, I'll turn it over to Laura to frame those areas.
Thank you, Kyle. As Kyle said, this is your guiding document of how you want your council meetings to run. So no action required tonight. We are seeking feedback and direction on potential updates. And I will go through those a little bit. As Kyle said, it serves as a guide to document acceptable practices among council members. We review it every 2 years or as needed. And we're looking at areas to strengthen within the language within the manual, as well as input from you on other changes you wish to see within the manual. I'm going to go just really briefly through the areas of focus tonight. The first one is advisory bodies, Chapter 2. We're going to talk about the filing period, council interviews, reports to the council, how you want to receive those from your advisory bodies. Resignations and cause for dismissal. Chapter 4 is financial matters. That's really the travel policy. Chapter 5, a little brief language change to proclamations. There's some language additions for a flag policy and council in the community. Chapter 7 is code of ethics and the council attendance policy. And Chapter 8 is meeting schedule, audio recordings, and order of business. So again, with that, there is no action required tonight. This is generally going to be a conversation. You received in your packet the layout of the different, the markup of the different changes. And I also sent you a link to the current protocol manual. And if there's any other place that you wish to have language change that's not mentioned here, this is your manual. We'll get that done for you. And our thought is we'll bring it back in April for adoption once we have this conversation. So with that, I'm going to just kind of briefly go through section by section. The current language for appointments made to council. This is just to clarify some of the language there. The filing period right now for the advisory bodies and when we advertise for those is the 3rd week of January through the 3rd week of February. I will say that crept up on us really fast this year. It was crazy. And then it talks about how we, have to advertise, et cetera. So what I'd like to do is just revise the language that would allow for us in the clerk's office to have a little bit more flexibility as long as we still have the timeline for you all to interview the applicants, and they're seated by May 1st when their terms begin. So the revised language would be the city clerk will determine the annual filing period for board and commission vacancies. The recruitment timeline will be a minimum of 3 weeks and allow for members to be seated by May 1. And we will announce the position vacancies on the website, social media, and notify chairpersons and staff liaisons and incumbents of the vacancies. So it's just kind of strengthens that a little bit and adds flexibility for us. Is there any questions on that?
Would it be too much coordination to try and target a notification in the appropriately timed Bothell Bridge mailer? So just make sure it makes it into the mailer too as another way to notify people. So you could, if let's say if it's going to be April 1st through April 21st, right? Then you can, if there's a bridge going out in March, maybe put an announcement in there.
Yeah, we could definitely work with the comms team when they put out their, well in advance so that it advertises.
I'm not fussy about when the notice period is. I just want to make sure as many people as possible see it.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Do we get a lot of people applying?
Yeah, right now, it closes Friday. So far, we have 42 applicants for 12 positions. Now, a couple of those, actually, I've written down, a couple of those, we don't have any applicants yet. We typically get a lot for Parks, Arts, and Planning Commission. We do have 3 for LTAC with 4 openings, which is really specialized, board and commission. So, that one's a little bit hard to get, but the other one, we don't have anybody for Landmark yet. And something that council could do when we get there, depending on how many people we have or don't have, is ask people for Planning Commission if they're interested in serving on that. So there's flexibility there. And then a couple of that we're advertising for Civil Service and LEF and the DEI advisory, but those are city manager appointed, but we throw them all in the same group. So right now we have 42 applicants for your appointees, appointments.
And just to follow on too, I think what we've seen is an uptick in interest and participation over the last few years. Some of that is, I think, the word of mouth advertisement. Some of it is the open house. Some of it is just making sure that we get things out and posted. To the extent of where then the subcommittee has been necessary, because the city had a practice up until 2023 of interviewing every applicant. And so when there would be 50 plus, you can imagine that was a multi-night affair. So the idea of doing a little bit of narrowing so that each applicant has time to interview and nobody has to take the 11 p.m. slot has been helpful. So we have seen an increase of interest, but there are times when that ebbs and flows depending on what's going on in the community. And again, I think this council has been very committed to getting information out there, which has, I think, helped participation rates.
Yeah, and I will say, we have a really involved community, and I've worked for other cities where you just can't get people to apply. So this is a good problem to have, right? So, any questions on that language change there? No? Great. The council interview period, the current language, as Kyle was just alluding to, the current language says, council will personally interview each applicant individually. Because we have so many, we've done the subcommittee route the last 3 years. So thinking about putting that into the protocol manual so that at the first of the year, we appoint that every year. Okay. And then adding also that the interviews, while they're open to the public, the recording will be suspended versus having to come back every time and go, can I get a motion to, it's just there. So, great. Added language to the.
Wait, I have a question on that.
Sure.
Is it at the beginning of each year or every biennium?
Well, we could do it every biennium, but as long as folks know that they're going to be on the subcommittee for 2 years. So I can change that if you like.
Would it be less work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should change it to biennium instead of doing a new process every year, because other
all the others are biennial.
yeah, we don't
Meetings every 2 years.
right. It's not a big
Yeah.
commitment.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
Great.
just do a
I
biennium to
like that.
cut your effort.
Perfect, thank you. The other on advisory bodies is added language that would allow you, that you may choose to appoint alternates, so that if we have somebody move away or otherwise fall off, and we have like 15 people for one planning commission, if you want to appoint an alternate to serve, who would then attend the meetings and then come up to as a voting member, in case somebody, leaves the commission. That is something that we thought maybe council would like to see and interview when they're doing the interviews. We only have this many. Would you be interested in serving as an alternate? So I'd like to get your feedback on that.
So let's think, as a concept, I think it's a great idea. Let's think about the details. So how would we're interviewing with one position, 5 people apply to it. We have to pick one. You're saying pick the second, but how are you gonna How is it
How
going
would
to
you
work?
choose your alternate?
Yeah.
I haven't really, I mean, I guess this, if you had one and there's, next person got the next many votes, would they be interested in serving as an alternate? Yeah, that could be a way to do it.
I think I've only done this a couple of times, but it does feel like for planning commission, for example, when we have too many folks for planning, we often encourage them to join the landmarks board. So I wouldn't want to lose, because landmarks is harder to recruit for than some other boards. And I wouldn't want to lose that pipeline either. So could it be, we want to offer you this position and then as an alternate? Or I guess I'm just thinking about the logistics of that. It feels like that's how we've gotten a fair amount of landmarks members.
Yeah, and if there's like an open spot on the planning commission and somebody who was on landmarks is interested in it and we like them enough to be like, hey, can you please go serve on this other board? Like, it feels like considering them for that planning commission vacancy would be the right thing to do. But that's logistically more difficult, I understand.
I don't like the idea of an alternate because we're requiring them to go to all the meetings and potentially never have to vote. That's not really good, even like practice of succession planning. I wouldn't go to all the meetings if I didn't have a vote because they wouldn't be worth my time. So I feel like I'm really hesitant on adding alternates because it would be disingenuous to tell someone that your voice is super important and we care for your feedback, but you
can't vote.
You can't vote.
Yeah.
And we can't guarantee you'll ever vote, and you might be a backup, but that just doesn't feel good to me. That's not respecting people's time.
Okay.
I
I'm
also
kind of
think-
hearing a theme here.
I just, because they were like the next choice when we interviewed, that doesn't mean they would be the best choice if an opening opened up either. It might be that someone who had a baby 6 months before that when we were interviewing is like, oh, now I'm available, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay. What we will do is continue to, when we do have an opening, we usually reach out to those people that applied before and kind of say, hey, this is open again. And if they're still interested, we'll have them apply. So we'll strike that.
Yes, it's fine. The thing though, that's why I said as a concept, I like the idea because it brings more people in and get them to participate. So maybe along this theme, we can do it as part of the boards and commission or as part of the council retreat. Like, how do you bring more people in to participate in government without them making them feel icky, about it. So just a suggestion.
Okay. I don't really have an answer to that. Do you? We're good?
For later.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on with advisory bodies, this is reports to council. And this is them coming to report to you or having a study session. We did that last year. We had study sessions with, I think, three of them. And they really liked that. I think council liked it. Getting them scheduled is a little, it's hard because people are busy and everything, but we could get them scheduled. But the other thing I really want to emphasize is that, we do have on our agendas board and commission reports, and getting the boards and commissions to come on a regular basis and give updates. However, I wanted to get your feedback about, did you like the study sessions with them? And bless you. And would you like to continue that?
And the one thing too, just to help maybe frame some of the feedback too, is I think there's three ideas that we've come up with as staff. You might have better ones, which is around, do you want to have like one night reception where you have joint meetings with all of the boards and commissions and do it all at once so that they can interact? Option two would be I think we schedule them more in succession in 2024 or 2025. The good news is that kind of kept the momentum going. The bad news is it does eat up a considerable amount of agenda time, and so it just depends on what's going on at the time. And then the third option would be to try and spread them out throughout the year, like one a quarter, that sort of thing. But if there is a preference, I think what we're basically looking for is do you want to formalize the practice, and then do you have a preference on how that practice looks?
Thank you. I really enjoyed the process that we engaged in last year, where we were able to all sit down together and talk. I thought the discussion questions that were posed to, both the board, commission, and council were productive. And I think, especially since we're talking about work plans, they develop their work plan and start their work plan at the beginning of the year. And so for us to have feedback, it makes sense for them to meet with us early in the year when their work plan is in development or new, instead of spacing it out over throughout the quarters in a year. So I really like the wording that's in here right now, and I think it would be really great to continue. I am kind of intrigued by the idea of meeting all of them together, but I feel like we would miss out on some of the depth of discussion that we got when we were able to all sit around together and have those discussion questions.
I think I have a hot take here, which is I thought that they were okay last year. When there's 14 people around a table, you don't really get to develop relationship. You don't really get to understand what makes certain people tick. We like to talk and hear ourselves talk on council, and so we tend to eat up a lot of the space and the oxygen in the room. I'm not one to reminisce for the old days, but when we did liaisons, there was a special connection and sort of a mentorship role between a council member and the board or commission that they liaised. And that's something that I don't think that quarterly, once a year, an annual check-in where not everyone can attend, and if you do attend as a board or a commission member, you're sitting here, you might have one ability to say one quick thing in the time that we have. So I think I would prefer more of the mixer kind of conversation, or having something a little bit less formalized, but also not foreseeing a big group conversation. I just think that was really, that I didn't have anything really relevant or poignant to say, and it just ended up being a big conversation and really high level. So I would prefer to do something a little bit more intentional, a little bit more, we used to do the dinner, not the dinner, but the board and commission evening when people are looking to apply and council members are there to answer questions. I was there this year to answer questions. Why can't we do that again? I think that personal conversation and that personal connection is really valuable, and it's something that we really haven't been able to recreate since the liaison period.
So I agree. I was never on a commission with liaisons, but having someone more deeply working with a board or commission feels like it gets more done than having all of us here once a year updates. I do feel like there's sort of a disconnect between our boards and commissions unless you happen to know someone who's on one of them. I enjoyed the joint meetings, but I don't know that I left feeling like we did a lot. I think they were just nice.
They weren't about doing, they were about getting an update and meeting the people. It wasn't about looking at a plan and deep diving into
Do you
them.
feel like you met the people there at the table of 14?
I mean, once a year is not gonna work, but it's better than zero.
Well, that's why I think if we were to each have a body that we worked with, I don't know, talking to people in other cities, that's how they do it, and it seems like they find more affinity with their boards and commissions than I currently feel. I think a once a year mixer could be a good idea. It doesn't have to be like Kirkland has an award ceremony for their boards and commissions every year, and it's a fancy not formal, but it's a fancier thing. Seattle formal. And so I don't know if it's dinner, I don't know if it's charcuterie, but some kind of way that we can socialize, but then also if one of us, if we're coming back during our council committee reports and saying like, here's what I've been observing on the planning commission, or here's what Landmarks is doing, giving the updates that are catered to the rest of our colleagues from what we're observing, if we're a liaison, I think could be better communication. But this might be a discussion like for a retreat, because it would be a bigger change, but I suspect that it could be a good, bigger change.
I have an idea that is relevant to this whole discussion. What if instead of the joint meeting, because I agree, I enjoyed it, I enjoyed talking with them, I didn't leave it feeling like we'd accomplished anything. And I think the big win is the relationship and the understanding and the conversations, not necessarily the official business. What if before council meetings, like each board came a couple times a year at 5 p.m. and we just ordered a little extra food and we were just able to sit and shoot the breeze with that board and commission for an hour before a council meeting? I mean, that gives us the conversation, that gives us the ability to build relationships. It's not as stilted as it is when it's on camera and recorded and available for public viewing on YouTube, as long as YouTube exists.
The caveat to that is that if you're having a joint dinner with council and a board and commission, it would be a publicly noticed meeting. You could suspend recording, but we would have to, you'd need to do it in here, it just wouldn't be.
But we could put that in the protocol manual, and that we are going to suspend recording for these, so we wouldn't have to make a motion for that every time, and we could notice it as a meeting, we could just eat out here.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
that was clear, is that it would be, people would be able to join and watch you eat.
We just have to keep Rami from spilling on the floor out here.
I will put down a rug.
Or Mason using my napkins.
I do think it's still like 14 to 16 people trying to get to know each other while we're all trying to eat dinner. And like some of us have to rush from work or other things to get here. So I'm open to it. It sounds fun. I don't know if it solves the connection thing for it to be just something we do once a year still.
I liked your idea of maybe taking it up in the retreat, if that's something, and then we can talk about it. We have different ideas.
Okay. The next one is resignations on the boards and commissions. Right now, it says the mayor accepts the resignations. I added that either the mayor or the city clerk could accept the resignation. Because they come from me and I say, hey, so-and-so's resigning. You say,
I do
okay.
something
So-
else for a living, it shouldn't come to me.
What about the staff liaison too? I just feel like I would reach out to the staff person I know the best. Like, do you want to just throw that in there for extra?
Yeah, sure. If council's agreeable to that.
Send an email to somebody with a bothellwa.gov email address and call it good. Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm going to strike that language about the alternate that we discussed earlier. The next section is cause for dismissal. Now, right now, the language says the council, a board or commission member may be dismissed from service for the following reasons: failure to attend 3 meetings, unexcused absences, failure to complete OPMA, PRA training within the 90 days of appointment, and using personal email accounts to conduct city business, or failure to use city email accounts. An added one this year is everybody, including council members and all staff, have to do the Know Before Cybersecurity training. So the revised language that we would like to discuss with you is that board and commission members will be dismissed. If they don't complete their cybersecurity training, they no longer have access to their city email. We do have a little bit of trouble getting people to complete their OPMA, PRA training within the 90 days. We offer that online, we offer it in person, where we do 2 meetings so they can come in and get that training, and then the online if they can't. So we have a little bit of struggle there. And then we've had occasions where folks haven't attended. And so just to strengthen that, hey, you've signed up for this. This is a working group. And we've had people that just don't show up to the meetings. So I'd like to discuss that with council.
I don't have to raise my hand.
What's that?
I was trying to raise my hand. Sorry if I jumped in.
Go ahead. I'm up next.
Okay. Does this apply to council members as well, or is there a separate area for cause for dismissal for council members?
Just board and commission members.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So if I understand correctly, the failure to attend meetings with 3 unexcused absences is actually a more stringent bar than what council is obliged to by law. I thought it was 3 unexcused absences in a row in the state law.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. So we could put that in a row.
I don't love that rule. I don't like the 3 unexcused absences in a row, because you can have somebody who attends a meeting, misses 2, attends a meeting, misses 2, and they're really only serving a third of their term.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like,
Unexcused.
but that's the state law, and I can't change the state law from this table. So I just was asking, like, should it be parity, like, between the groups, or?
It really gets to be up to, this is an advisory board to council, so you can set whatever conditions that you would like.
I would like something in there that is like even a little bit more vague. Like if there's an action that it reflects poorly on Bothell or that merits dismissal in some way. I know there have been examples in the city of people who've used their platform on a board or commission to say things that I know fall very outside of the values that we hold, and we wouldn't want somebody using the platform that we gave them to do those things. So if there's some way that we can word that like, you know, if we have somebody that says, you know, I serve on this Bothell board and commission, and therefore says something bigoted or terrible or that we don't like, then I want to be able to get rid of them.
I wonder if failure, so I don't love putting a number on the number of unexcused absences. I wonder if it's just failure to attend meetings that affects participation in that commission's work. But then also to the mayor's point, I think we should list basically that if a majority of the council is concerned about someone's performance or the legal way to say, like, making discriminatory comments from during a meeting or whatever. I think that's important because we should have a mechanism to address things we have seen in other cities like that. And then on the last bullet point, using personal email accounts to conduct city business, but also failure to preserve public records. Because I think the issue is really public records, and that could be a number of different things, not just email. Just so that, I think a majority vote would do it no matter what, but making it clear beforehand is also helpful.
I also think that there's no reason to make like too strict of requirements on ourselves. Because like if we're like, we have to have this many unexcused absences, well, what if somebody shows up for the first 5 minutes of the meeting and then logs off? Like, I mean, like these are our rules, and like, I don't feel like we should make a lot of, you have to do these things, like do your job or don't. Like, I mean, we're reasonable people. Like, I mean, people have stuff to do. We miss meetings, but like, if you don't show up to 3 meetings in a row, and you know, the ones you do show up to, you're, you know, camera off and don't participate, like you could then argue it's like, oh, I went to that meeting. Well, come on. So I would say we should keep this as vague as possible. And I mean, I can't think of a time when we would have used this, but why restrict ourselves?
I like that. I think being vague as possible is good. I just curious, is there a code of conduct?
Well, there's a council code of conduct. We're going to get to it.
Okay, but just for the boards and commission, to your point, someone's making racist remarks and they should be dismissed. There's no code of conduct, or it's just sort of honor system, you're going to be.
There's a rules of conduct.
Okay, that's helpful.
The ethics code that applies to elected and appointed officials also is part of it. And to some of the conversation, I think there is language that could be built in around 2 of grounds for dismissal that go beyond, like, you not having to list every example of what it might be. So I think we could look at some of that as well.
So we'll work on that and bring that back for council to.
Thank you.
So that's everything for advisory bodies, unless there's more that council would like to add to it.
One other point in cause for dismissal, instead of saying using personal email accounts to conduct city business, I think it's just misuse of email accounts, because you could be, I would not want, and it's also against our policy, our tech policy, to use city email for personal business too. So some way to phrase that makes it clear that the city email is for city business. Maybe that's the terminology. So anyway, yeah, that'd be a good thing to add there.
Okay, thank you. The next one is the Section 404 on the travel policy. So this was brought up by, I believe, Deputy Mayor Alderks regarding how to, right now it just says you'll follow the travel policy. So it's kind of to expand the language to allow for, like, what are we going to allow for travel? And so the added language that we've proposed here is that the training will be set during the biennial budget adoption and adjusted through the annual budget process, amendment process, and travel funds will be sufficient to include one national conference, one state conference per biennium per council member. And I can add that there. And then shall additionally include expenses for all council members to attend the Association of Washington Cities City Action Days or similar legislative conference.
And Laura, if I may, I think a couple of options got cut off, I think, when the track changes getting cleaned up. So there was multiple options around what to look at. So for the discussion portion, just to, again, wrap some context around this, it was first raised by the deputy mayor related to approval, and especially the context was around being appointed to national committees, to the National League of Cities, of where there's required travel as part of the volunteerism. And so wanting to be able to have a mechanism of how to highlight to council, not trip by trip, but I've been offered this nomination, here's what it comes with, so that there's full acknowledgement and transparency. The other scenario is around just making sure that there's some lever of approval that goes along with it. So right now in the options, the one that made it was required approval of travel requests by the mayor pro tem. That's a current practice consistent with other cities, but typically in mayor council forms of government. Some other options would be, I think the other one that we saw is around the use of council conversations. So if somebody's intending to go to a conference, to just say, I'm registering, I'll be traveling next week, that sort of thing, and or reporting upon their return of, I think one of the good practices in life is around what did you learn when you did something. So when you say it, when you tell somebody else, you remember it better. So having some different options like that, which is less of a may I do this and more of a self-managed plan, which I think aligns more of what we've been hearing. I will also note too that there was what Laura mentioned around what the budget is about. In 25 and 26, we did reset the budget so that we find an average of about 2 trips per council member and managed to that. And council was under that budget threshold for 2025, and you're certainly on track to be way under. I think we've spent $0 in 2026.
Have there been any abuses of the policy?
I think part of this came up with perception of abuse, but there was no real policy, right? So right now it's you have to comply with the city's travel policy, which means there's a travel advance, the city books it, that sort of a thing. But there isn't. There was no protocol beyond that.
I will out myself a little bit in sort of an answer to your question. I was concerned that we had 2 council members who took trips to a national conference at the very end of terms they were not seeking to renew last year. And knowing for months that you won't be going forward doing this work on behalf of the city, but then taking that travel budget, but rubbed me the wrong way. And with our current policy, we didn't have a way to even, like, I do sort of like the idea of like, I'm going on this trip, here's why. And maybe that's just outside the 2 trips that we budget for in AWC. I'm open to whatever, but I do think because we are in a very weird job where we don't have a boss of the city that's approving our travel, and there's no one whose job it would be to do that, we don't get a performance review except every 4 years, should we choose to run for another term. So being able to be open with each other as stewards of the city budget feels like maybe a way to do that, but I don't know how common it will be that that concern will arise again, so.
I love the idea of not being incredibly strict with it, because obviously we're under this threshold right now, but I don't want to get to a point where it's like, well, you went to NLC last and AWC last year, so like this opportunity came up and you can't go. I love the idea that City Manager Stannard brought up about just like talking about it in council conversations. Because like if you're willing to like tell all of your colleagues and all of your constituents on the public record, like why you think this is a good use of city funds, I'm really not worried about abuse in that case. And I don't feel like we need to regulate it super hard if that's happening.
I'd love to speak from my experience as serving on a National League of Cities committee. And I will be honest, I did not entirely know what I was committing to when I signed up, but it sounded cool. It was a really fantastic experience, but I think it required 3 trips. And so there was like the city summit, the conference, and like a summer
There's
leadership.
a summer convening, yeah.
Yeah. And so like they were fantastic experiences. I went to DC, I went to Rancho Cordova, California, which felt like visiting home or my hometown at least. And then Tampa, Florida, which is a weather experience. I was in the winter. I ended up, it went from very cold to very hot to very cold again. But I did and so I don't see the added language reflecting that and I think it's just such a fantastic experience that if any one of my colleagues wanted to do that, I would like to see that opportunity is available. The opportunity to shape federal policy in like a focused area was just a really powerful experience, and I highly recommend it to anybody who'd like to do it. And I don't want to take that opportunity away. It did feel kind of awkward to like go to my colleagues and be like, can you please vote to give me permission to do this thing that I've already committed to doing? And so I think that the conversation that we're having here tonight about like come to council conversations to say, I'm planning, like as a part of these duties, I'm doing this thing, is not asking, it's just informing. And I feel much better about that.
I think where that's also helpful in that example, there's not a lot of use cases like that, but I think National League of Cities is looking for a candidate from each jurisdiction. They're not looking to be the arbiter of like who wants it more. And so I think also by highlighting the intent, it helps formalize who's applying for each position. Again, there's a number of committees on the National League of Cities, and if that's something that council wants to consider when nominations come up in the fall, like that would be a good conversation in itself. But I appreciate you sharing that experience, because I think it does help shape again, that intent of it's not a permission-based thing. It's really, you have it within your ability to do. The question is how to make it not seem like in the dark.
And I like what Deputy Mayor Aldrich said there. Just like you're not like we're not voting on this. Like you're just saying, hey, like I've been offered this opportunity, I'm gonna go. And like obviously, if you're like, I'm gonna go to the Zebra Museum, it's gonna be great. We're all gonna be like, what? But we're pretty reasonable people, and like if you're doing something that is related to what we're doing, that you're gonna learn that you can bring stuff back from. I don't want to approve it. Yes. I think I'm just restating what the deputy mayor said in a worse way, so I'm going to stop now.
I kind of restated what you said, so we're just in agreement.
We're going to move on to Chapter 5, which is communications. And that has a couple of sections. One is proclamations, and just that we're asking that proclamations require 30 days advance notice versus 3 weeks. It's just because it's hard to get them on the calendar, it's hard to get people scheduled, et cetera. So,
Hard to get a hold of the mayor.
no comment. Yeah, so if council's okay with that, we'll make that change. Great. And then we have a new section here regarding commemorative flags. And how we would get them, display them on the flagpoles, and identify a specific event, cause, theme, nation, or group of people that the city council chooses to honor. In accordance with this current city flag policy, they would only be displayed for a maximum of 30 days. And that would be added to the protocol manual.
Can we make that a maximum of 31 days? Just because if we have a flag up for an entire month and that happens to be 31 days?
Sure.
Do we have, I know it says the council so chooses or something like this, but like, do we want to add restrictions beyond that so that we won't start getting some random, because some people come and say, if you allow it for this group, why aren't you allowing for that?
We choose to honor it.
I know, but
It's our-
I know, that's what I'm saying. Do we need to do additional restrictions?
I think having it be our choice is a really easy way to say, we chose to do that and we're not choosing to do this. And if we start making like guidelines around it, then we give people the opportunity to argue why it fits certain guidelines. And I would rather not have that conversation.
I won't be around forever on this council. I don't think most of us will be around forever, so it's a future conversation. But it's a protocol manual, it could be changed by anybody at any time anyway, so it doesn't matter. Okay.
I mean, we could craft the world's best flag policy and then all be out of office. And then someone could say only flags that Joe likes. I mean, it's just, Joe's a random name I made up. But I guess I feel like we haven't voted on a flag in quite a while. Do we have like a list of flags that we're like already cool with?
Sorry, were you about to answer? I think usually it's part of, it's been language that's been included in proclamations. So that by having it, that's been how that practice has been. So with this, it may be something that then needs to have a little more emphasis on it. But really the intent of this, like to get to kind of the heart of this conversation, is how to make sure that it's clear of the council has the authority of deciding if a flag flies.
So we're good with the verbiage that, according to what council chooses, that's good enough? I guess that's the question.
Ultimately, everything in this manual is because we choose it, so I'm fine with that.
I realize this is a ridiculous question, but we don't vote on proclamations. So is it now not going to be part of the proclamation?
We would have an additional step to
Okay.
be part of it. So yeah, the practice has been to include it in proclamations and by having an approved proclamation. But that is also in your protocol if the proclamations are approved by the mayor. So if it wanted to be council approval, then we would probably just schedule something concurrently in advance of the event.
The only thing I don't like is like every year being asked, do you want to raise like the prisoner of war missing in action flag? Yes. So how do we best handle sort of repeat flags without making Laura just get a vote every time?
Yeah, so resolutions are an expression of council will, and much like protocol manuals can be changed. So you could, we could do this through resolution of having like if there was an identified week, month, day that you wanted a specific flag raised, we could have that up and not have an end date on it, and then
just update the resolution as
it would be up to
flags
councils
change.
to make changes.
Okay, I don't want us to vote on the same thing every year just because there's a lot of that already.
I'm I guess posing this to my colleagues, would it be helpful if we listed the approved flags that council had approved? Because then future councils could say, we disagree with that list and we're changing, like we're removing or adding. And that way we don't have to do the votes every year.
That's how I took that. So if we
Okay.
can get a resolution with just our base list of flags, and then changing it doesn't have to mean changing the protocol manual. It's just we're updating the resolution.
Do it.
I'm down with that. Thank you. And you have the note about 31 days. Thank you.
Don't call it fussy, just particular.
Thorough.
The next one is, are we ready? Are we having fun? I'm ready to go. The next one is the revised language that staff will consider schedules and community events calendars to schedule a quarterly council in the community engagement event for the public. The recurring event series, day, time, and location will vary to encourage diverse community participation. Event should have at least 2 council members in attendance, but no more than 3. So we don't have to advertise it as a special meeting. Are we good with that? Okay, great. Thank you. And then I'm gonna,
Yeah, so the next section
Code of ethics.
is within it's a section about interaction with city and staff officials. Interestingly, there's a code of ethics section, but the code of ethics cited was the city manager's code of ethics, which I would love to talk to you about anytime. However, in the context of a council manual, I'm not sure. Like, put it in my contract, yes. In the council protocol manual, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. The city council is, though, you have your own code of ethics, and it is part of the Bothell Municipal Code. So the proposed language would take out the city manager language and put in the reference to the Bothell Municipal Code, Chapter 2.13. Within that code, just included some details just so that there'd be enough information to tie somebody back to that section if they're interested. The highlights are that it includes, there's a position of an ethics officer, which is a contracted position, which is an independent person. We don't use them for anything else other than when ethics questions come up. And then there's really two things the ethics officer considers. One is when a public official, so either the council or an appointed board and commission member, seeks an advisory opinion and says, can you tell me, is this okay? Or if there is a complaint from anyone that's appropriately filed with the city clerk. So we would insert that language as an alternative.
How often do we review our adopted code of ethics?
At once. No, so that's a great question. Actually, the ethics officer has now been on board for just a little bit over a year, and the ethics code has not been, it may have been reviewed, but it hasn't been modified since it was first adopted. So it's about 11 years old. So if council would be interested, we can also, again, bring a follow-up of having your ethics officer come and do a bit of a training, do a review of what they've seen in the first year, and then if there are any changes you'd like to see, or at least contemplate what they would look like, then the ethics officer could join you for that conversation.
I think it's important to make sure it's modern. 11 years ago is not old times, but it's not now. And that's all I have to say about that, I guess.
I really do appreciate the proposed language that's in here, and I think that is a good plan going forward to, introduce the ethics officer to council, and then have that be a conversation around, are there any updates needed to the code? So yeah, I really like this plan going forward.
And the last that I have to present tonight is Chapter 8, City Council Meetings, and adding language regarding that council meetings are scheduled to conclude no later than 9 p.m. And when a council meeting occurs on an election day, council will conclude by 8, so that it's in the protocol manual. But I'm opening it up for discussion if council wishes to change that to we cancel, whatever, however you want.
Can't cancel
Yeah.
it like the,
What's that?
713.
oh,
So there's also, we'll open it up to two things. This
Okay.
one, and then also the attendance policy, which was something that came up since the last update, was if there's anyone who needs to leave early. So you get an excused absence if you notify the clerk or the mayor by a certain time. If you're not going to be at the meeting at all, there is a suggestion of adding language around if somebody's leaving mid-meeting, of making sure that they make a statement or connect with the mayor, the city manager, or the city clerk, who will announce the time that they left for the record. That gets recorded in the meeting minutes, so it's something that we're already trying to pay attention to, but it would just help formalize the practice.
I mean, that sounds good. I think it's smart, but who is leaving in the middle of the meeting? Has that happened before?
not in 2026.
Okay.
No, it didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So, valid reasons might be an emergency with a child, jet lag, parental emergencies, things that we've dealt with.
Okay, life.
Having to take a vote that you're uncomfortable about isn't a good enough reason, though.
Having big feelings also just not a good reason.
Or spouse card.
What was the thing we talked about before that? Oh, can we just not have meetings on election nights? Can we just do it the 4th?
To the council.
Yes to that,
Like-
because it's always a thing, and we're always, so like, no election night, and then I would love for us to put in here, not during school breaks. We're all in one school district in Bothell, so North Shore school breaks, let's just stop doing it. I realize it's a school break this week, but that's a calendar that's published years in advance, and it creates a lot of scheduling tension we have majority parents on our council now, so.
And we have, there's that 4th Tuesday that's just out there. So like if the 3rd Tuesday is in a school week, we can just have it on the 4th Tuesday.
I think the one caveat with the election night one would be around what would you do in November? So the 4th Tuesday is 2 days before Thanksgiving, which sometimes creates its own conflict. So is there a
4th
preference?
Tuesday in October.
4th Tuesday in October, or even if meetings have to be a little bit longer, I think that's still preferable than a weird short meeting.
So
on
basically
election
no meetings on election night. We can figure out how
Yes.
to manage the calendar.
Or like we could meet on Wednesday of that week. Okay. Sorry, that was a bad idea.
Last week was an election night, and we met.
November election nights.
Hot take, I don't care that we meet on election night, and in fact, I think that if we're gonna be canceling a lot of meetings, especially at the end of the year, we need to accommodate that somewhere, because we end up being so busy at the end of the year. I don't know why these meetings earlier on in the year feel like they just are so anemic, and then they're so heavy at the end of the year, and I feel like that it's hard to balance when work planning. So if we're gonna be skipping election day, I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out, whether a fourth week in a prior month, or another day. But if we're going to be taking on the school district calendar, I think it would necessitate us having a conversation about whether it still makes sense to take August off.
Why don't, in between now and April, you look at the school calendar and say, hey, like there's 4th Tuesdays in those months, or when those are, and come to us with the best solution you got, and we can workshop it if we don't like it.
Also, just for like historical reference, we didn't meet on the school district spring break and midwinter break, which are April and February, for the last 2 years before this year, and we didn't end up with a lot of fourth Tuesday meetings or anything. I think because those are in February and April, it's in that lighter time you mentioned. I understand the concern about November, though. I just feel like we always end up, like, our job is to do this in public. People are not as engaged on election night watching us do this stuff, and we always end up with different council members being absent because of what else is going on that day. So it feels like our focus is split a little bit as a state, as a city, as a body here.
That's the thing that always gets me about the election night thing is like, we literally didn't have a meeting last week. Like, we could have just done it last week. I will stop talking about this now. I'm to the repeating myself point of the evening.
The other thing I'll throw on the table too is, so there was a mention of holidays, and just for clarity, if we wanted to be more granular, could put in the federally recognized holidays, but I've also had questions, I think, with tomorrow of, there was a scheduled planning commission meeting, although it's been canceled, but it also coincides with a couple of different religious holidays as well. And so there was a question around if there's a practice of coming up with a list of recognized holidays and events to avoid, and or if it's really best left up to the individuals serving to decide. And that question came to me just in making sure of like that there isn't a practice that's established that's different, so that it's, you know, a board or commission does something one way and the council does something another, but wanted to get feedback on federally recognized holidays where the city is closed. Are there other recognized days that if it falls on a Tuesday, you'd want to consider cancellation, or do we take that year by year?
Do our staff liaisons who are scheduling the meetings, I'm thinking specifically like Ramadan is just starting, do they know that they can take that half an hour break at sunset like we do for our council meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking about staff that show up to our council meetings too. And this is why I'm so like bothered by being willy-nilly with the schedule, because it's not just us that have to show up, it's also all the staff. And I think I would like to be responsive to the needs of the staff who have to show up here too. I think that we all have respect for the different cultures that are represented in our staff, and expanding the definition of what holiday is beyond federally recognized as only just being meeting the needs of our community here in the city's organization. So that I have no problem with. But we have to be really cognizant of the commitments that we're asking staff to make when we move meetings around and make them irregular too. So just keeping a balance there.
No, I appreciate that. I think there is the predictability of life, the rhythm of life of a Tuesday night. I mean, we even feel it when we have a Monday holiday, for example. Like this week is the Monday, Tuesday grind is real. There's harder things in life than this, but yeah, it's definitely noticeable. There is a practice of like when we are scheduling things, you'll note that the staff attendance tonight looked different than it often does because it is midwinter break. And so there is an aspect of not scheduling things if there are people that have personal conflicts too. We do have a number of sole source programs in the city of where there's one person that does something. And so it's not like there's a bench of people who can present on things. So there's certain topics that we do schedule around events. And I think that's how we've tried to manage the practice as best we can.
I would just like to reiterate that I do think it's good for this body to look at, just by default in the policy manual, taking midwinter break and spring break off. Even though we might not all have aligning school district calendars at this point, My own household doesn't have aligning school district calendars, so I just come to the meetings.
Were there any other topics that council were hoping to discuss tonight that we missed? Oh, I guess the one other thing, there's a couple more. I apologize. I was rushing you through. So audio recordings of meetings, we touched on this earlier around, currently the rules say that all meetings will be recorded, and then a couple of times a year for special meetings, and interviews of board and commissions, we ask you to suspend those rules. The thought is that to just go ahead and proactively suspend for board and commission interviews. Part of that is around if you're recording them and they take all night, people are going to be able to scout the competition. And also may feel pressure of if they haven't responded to questions from elected officials on camera before. And then also for the city council retreats, which is more of a logistics thing. But there's that one. And then also there's a proposed order of business that you'll see before you with some proposed changes highlighted, including titles. But then also I will say the one that is not council initiated, but the city manager has proposed would be having under the meeting agenda approval, a practice that I've seen in another city was around having the city manager review the agenda and just talk through at the beginning of the meeting before public comment, even of what are the things before you tonight, including maybe some items that are on the consent calendar, just so people understand what the business of the council is going to be. And I promise to keep it succinct as long as I'm here. So, and then after that, then the council would consider approval of the agenda or any changes that you'd like to see.
I have probably a few questions. Number one, so the recordings we are suspending for the benefit of the users or the benefit of the applicants. Is that right? Whoever is, just to make sure they are more comfortable to present.
There's a comfort, and then there is like a reality of that if they're broadcast, then you can be out in the lobby watching on the phone. So if you're the sixth person interviewing for the Planning Commission, you can be watching on YouTube to know the questions and practice your answer. And so then the slotting of who answers first becomes a thing. So I think that's also a motivation, is just, it's like anyone could sit in this room, but you would also observe that as a city council member. What you wouldn't see is if somebody was out front or in their car watching.
Understand. Okay. The next question, especially we are new to the council, whenever we want to have a conversations because of the quorum or whatnot, maybe Mayor Thompson or Kyle, you can help. If we want to bring any discussions, is it 7C where we can bring any kind of discussions so that we can discuss? Is that right? Anything related to like a public or any discussions?
So yeah, so the 7C is for just basically reporting out the projected agenda. Excuse me. The projected agenda discussion is really designed for council members who want to bring up an item that they want to talk about in a broader sense. So how that would work is, I would come and say, hey, I want to talk about, this thing. And people would have questions, we would talk about it. And if the majority of council was like, okay, let's scope that, the staff will essentially bring back a scope of here's what that conversation would look like. And if we want to have that conversation, then the staff will do the work and we will have the conversation.
Okay, will that be conversation be like a session like this or?
An agenda bill.
Okay.
So if it's casual, like you're like, hey, who's been here? Or I went to this event and I want to tell you about it. Or I went to this new thing in Bothell. If you think that we might need to pass an ordinance or a resolution, or it's a bigger thing that we need staff time, then that's more of the projected agenda discussion. But you can bring up anything in conversations. And it may be that the conversation leads to, hey, we should put this on the agenda in the future.
Very good. Okay. Yeah. And this is related to the voting. Always my position number is 1. It always starts with me, and lucky guy is our council member Alka. Alcabra. So I'm thinking whenever there is a voting, can we do like a 3 types of voting where either position 1 to 7 or 7 to 1 or mayor and deputy mayor and others? Like whenever there is a voting, instead of always it starts with position 1, are there any other alternatives we can do?
You're trying to give up that first vote power already?
I'm just.
I mean, I guess what I would say is, by the time we get to a vote, we're never really surprised. Like, we've just had a conversation about it, we've talked about it, most people will telegraph or say the way that they're voting in the conversation. That's not really answering your question, though, so.
No.
Did we used to have a system, or maybe I'm just like imagining, there's a button system and one council member never put their button, push their button, but the votes were like displayed on it. It was kind of like the California House of Representatives. I don't know if that's a system that you don't like and that we've moved away from intentionally or what.
We had it, and it was removed. It doesn't really work with the system that we have right now as far as the YouTube system, and we had to remove it.
The advent of Zoom, I think, was a
Yeah,
big part of that, is
with the
that
Zoom.
they're incompatible with each other. However, this is the year of technology replacement, and so we are looking to see if there's something similar. But I will also say, from what I understand, it was a pretty complicated system that was built for large bodies of over 100 type of a thing. So that may or may not be a solution, but that is something we're pursuing.
I mean, you could just have something like right in front of us, like the 3 lights for the talking part of the public comment, and just like have like one green, one red, one yellow that's like yes, no, or abstain. And like, it could just be visual on the camera anyway.
It has
We
to
have-
work for hybrid meetings.
We have better tech people than me.
What was the reason for your question?
It was just to see and understand overall how, I guess, how everybody is leaning towards and learn, because we are new also. How do we learn from other council members, basically?
Yeah, I think, as the mayor said, usually the conversation either happens after the presentation or once the motion and second happens, there's also a discussion that could happen at that time. So there's a couple of opportunities that, we'll hear each other speak and discuss and have that conversation. And then by the time the vote arrives, we've already made our minds up, by that time, so like, I'm not going to influence your vote,
And what is the deadline for making these changes for this protocol? Are we finalizing everything today? Is there a deadline for making changes?
No, the intent would be the clerk is going to make some edits and bring back a proposed change in April, speaking of schedule conflicts. And then at that time, you would be able to make further edits and amendments as well.
And I would just encourage you to, like, if you're about to take a vote, so before the motion is made, like, I make this motion, then we vote on it, right? You can use that time to ask questions, and people can choose to be recognized by the mayor and speak. And then there's also, does anyone want to speak to the motion? I think you can use that time to seek clarity. So I think everybody here wants you to feel comfortable asking questions, so I just wanted to remind you of other points closer to the vote where you can do that too.
Thank you.
That is all I have. However, if there's other areas of the protocol manual you wish to discuss or want to see some changes, please let me know.
With the bit about adding that meetings end by 9, is that just a new goal that we have? Because it's just kind of been when we run out of stuff.
Council meetings are scheduled to conclude no later than 9 p.m.
Because that's
but-
not in here today. which is why I was curious about it being a new addition.
We had received that was one where we received feedback subsequent to last update of a preference of not having decisions going beyond a certain point. And so, yeah, as the city clerk mentioned, our practice has been, we try and honor a 3-hour-ish, sometimes up to 3:20, 3:30.
And I'm not saying longer meetings
Yeah,
are better.
but not not taking it to the extent of saying meetings end by a certain time. I've definitely lived that life too, and then you end up extending the meeting 15 minutes at a time, which gets tedious. So basically what it's communicating is that our intent is to keep it at about 3 hours. To the earlier conversation about canceling meetings, to council members' Crid point, we could then make conscious decisions to say, we're gonna have to have a couple that are 4 hours long because we've canceled some meetings, or to get through the business of the city. But as we're trying to load balance the year, including at the end of the year, of doing everything we can to keep it at 3 hours, that as a guidepost.
Speaking of load balancing, this is just a question, but like one of the things we do every year at the end of the year is we convene as the City of Bothell Emergency Medical Services Board. Is that something that we can do earlier in the year, or does it have to be later in the year? Like if we know we're going to do it, we're pretty sure we know what we're going to do, can we get it out of the way earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that it's teed up at the time it is that it corresponds with budget actions. And so it's at the time of where you're considering the full city budget, and then therefore, then you're tacking on the one decision of the fire board.
I mean, really, it's 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Like, that's an easy item to be like, it's not that much. But some stuff we have to do in the latter part of the year because of RCW, but I'm just curious if we ever look at, oh, well, we could do that this other time.
I mean, this is only slightly answering your question, but one of the things to try and streamline that year end is that working with the finance director, Quan Wong, he and I are determined to give you the option of adopting the budget in your third meeting of November instead of in the first meeting of December, because you do end up voting twice on a number of things because we have a deadline with the counties for property tax calculation purposes. So if we move up the budget adoption, for example, to earlier, introducing it earlier and approving it earlier, that frees up action after Thanksgiving holiday as well. So those are the types of things that we look at and we're trying to improve upon as we've had a few years together. But yeah, I mean, certainly there is a rhythm to the things that are driven by statute tend to gravitate towards, which is why like we were able to identify during the comp plan year of 2024 when it's also a budget year. We just knew like if you want to bring something new to council, fall is probably not going to be your best option.
One final note that I had was that I appreciate how you've structured meetings for us in that the narrative of the arc of legislation starts with a study session, and then we have a report, or we have, we are able to ask questions. We have a public hearing, and then another meeting we have a vote, rather than having what some other jurisdictions do, which is to consider a motion and vote on it the same night. And that timeline doesn't allow for thorough conversation with our community, as well as it heightens the sense of urgency to take a vote on something that people aren't prepared to make. So I don't know whether it would be helpful. I know it's a practice that you've brought, and it's not something that council really controls, but it might be helpful to outline that it's our preference of the council in our protocol manual to not take votes at the same night that or not consider something at the same night that we're first hearing about it, unless, extenuating circumstances like an emergency proclamation or something.
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction. And because truly, like the only time that we ever break that is if there's something it could be in terms of emergency action, but it could also be of like, it's just a small thing. But yeah, I think, again, having that language of the preference really captures that. So yeah, I think that would be, people Laura and I won't always be here, so if that practice is still working, great. And then if it's not, then council would be able to give further direction. So yeah, we can play with that language too.
I support that. I spoke at that version of like that order, the praises of it to the college students tonight. So yes, let's make it official. Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.